Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Adrian and Renovate Europe for inviting me here today. Thank you to the MEPs for hosting and to the Estonian presidency. Okay, so I have the not so favourable challenge of trying to condense two 200-page reports into about 8 minutes, 10 minutes. So bear with me, and we'll try and go through. I apologise also, there's a bit of a shadow on the screen. I hope you can see the main things. I'm going to give a quick background to the studies, why they were commissioned, very quickly talk about some scenarios, very, very quickly, and then go straight to summary findings and things that can affect the scale, and then my own concluding remarks. You don't need to read the small print. The Commission has a disclaimer on the work. They are our views. So, two reports for the Commission over the last 2 years, both with very similar titles. I'm going to mostly focus on the one on the left, the macro level and sectoral impacts of energy efficiency policies. This mostly focuses on the Energy Efficiency Directive. It encompasses analysis on the Energy Performance in Buildings Directive. And the study on the right only focuses on the Energy Performance in Buildings Directive. They're both available. If you follow me on Twitter, you can follow the links and read the detail to your heart's content. All 400 pages. So we start with some scenarios from the Commission that the Commission were investigating. These have been assessed in primes, and they set different levels of ambition for energy efficiency, ranging from 27 to 40% reductions from the 2007 primes reference scenario. It gets technical very quickly, I'm afraid. To cut primary energy consumption. So we have scenarios ranging from a 27% cut in primary energy consumption, ranging all the way to a very lofty ambition of a 40% reduction in primary energy consumption by 2030. The numbers speak for themselves, really. We currently have primary energy consumption of about 1,500 million tons of oil equivalent in Europe. The ambition is to reduce that to somewhere between 1,300 and 1,100 by 2030. That is a significant challenge. So, following on from a number of recent studies, not least the IEA's multiple benefits of energy efficiency study, our remit in these studies was to try, as near as it could be done, to quantify what the benefits of, or what the impact, rather, of energy efficiency measures would be. What they would do for the economy, what they might do for health, what they might do for the public finance, what impact it might have on competitiveness, and on energy poverty, on energy dependency, and try to look at the whole picture for European society in a holistic way. To condense the findings, I've tried to just focus on a few of those indicators. So we find that in going from a 27% reduction to 30, 33, 35, 40, no matter how far you go in ambition, Europe's economy will be better off. And the reason for that is fairly, well, it's twofold, but it's also very intuitive, is if we stop importing fuels that we use to supply our energy in the form of gas and oil, nearly everything that we substitute for leaves us better off as a society. So it has a higher value chain, and so whether that's then paying for the measures in the first instance, so paying for the efficiency measures, paying for the insulation, or rather investing, I should say, or whether that's then further down the line reaping the economic benefits in terms of each household having a lower fuel bill and therefore more money to spend on other things. Whether it's either of those, there are strong economic benefits. So GDP could increase somewhere between 1 and 2%. That's always a fairly abstract thing, but one way to think about it is getting another year's worth of GDP growth in between now and 2030, which is significant. And we do a lot of these studies, and when you see something over 1% of GDP, it's really a large finding. Okay. The other thing about the installation of measures, particularly in the building stock, is the number of jobs, and an expression we use in the UK, I'm not sure how well it translates, but shovel-ready jobs that there are. Okay. So a lot of jobs in terms of installing the measures, but also a lot of jobs to do with the other value chains that are generated. So when consumers are better off, the services that they spend on. And so we could see really very significant increases in employment. 2 million jobs sounds vast, but remember there are something like 260 million people in employment in Europe. So it's roughly a 1% increase in employment. We've already touched upon the importance of indoor air pollution and the health benefits. So working with colleagues, I should have said this is a report that has been done by us as well as Ernst & Young, SQ Consult, Wuppertal Institute and the Energy Centre for the Netherlands. So working with some of the colleagues there, we've tried to monetize the health benefits, and these range between 30 billion and 80 billion reduction in healthcare expenditure across Europe. Of course, one of the main reasons for doing this is to reduce CO2 emissions and greenhouse gas emissions, and there are significant gains from really going for a stretching ambition. The emissions numbers there are the reduction against the 1990 baseline, allowing for all of the other things in the climate and energy package to 2030, and then the different levels of ambition in the Energy Efficiency Directive. Interestingly, because it's good for the economy, it's also good for public budgets. And it's good for public budgets, in this case that I've drawn out, where the measures are self-financing, so people have found policies and mechanisms to incentivize the consumer to pay for their own measure. But you'll also see in the report that it's good for public budgets, even if the public sector pays for a majority of the budgets. Not as good, clearly, but still beneficial. And the reason is that they get the payback through the increased activity in the rest of the economy. It's a very difficult sell for a politician, but nonetheless, it's a real benefit. One of the differences, of course, of looking at the building stock, and this is mostly taken from the second report, rather than energy efficiency in general, is the extra social benefits of doing things that affect each and every citizen in their home. And in particular, the Wuppertal Institute looked at the degree to which different combinations of targeting versus different combinations of ambition in energy efficiency could improve the lives of people living in energy poverty today. And they find that up to 5 million households, sorry, it's very hard to see the footnotes, but these are in thousands. So 5 million households across Europe by 2030 could be lifted out of the financial worry of being in arrears on their energy bills. And I note that it's World Mental Health Day today, so considerable benefit in terms of reduced stress to households. We've touched on it already, but 8 million households, if well targeted, could be moved out from having rot or damp or mold in their properties by 2030. And a further 6 million households across Europe would be able to adequately keep their warms home and not live in cold, inadequate housing, but only if correctly targeted. So all of the benefits show up as largely positive, and then there are various things that affect the scale of how positive that could be. Sorry, I've got to be very quick. So Well, the ambition, obviously, the extent to which people are told in advance, and therefore we don't have the crowding out phenomenon, so businesses can plan for these investments that need to happen. Whether they're self-financed or publicly financed, and whether we target homes in energy poverty or we just let. So my conclusions, significant economic and social benefits could be realized if ambitious targets are set, but they need to be backed up with policies that make them achievable. The economic benefits will be greatest if the targets are set early, if businesses believe in the targets and businesses can increase their capacity to deliver against those targets. And policymakers need to carefully consider their objectives. We can make a significant impact on those people currently living in energy poverty. They have to be focused on within the directives to maximize that impact.